I am your host, a husband, father, witty conversationalist, and co-founder of the Movement Real Estate Group. Join me for engaging discussions with friends where we navigate through business, goals, self-development, relationships, and our community, and whatever else captures our interest. Come join me on this journey as we rediscover the art of conversation.
Love it.
Ready? Okay. All right, guys, welcome back. My name is Merrick. This is the Movement Experience. Today, I am joined with my friend Dan Village. Dan, I've known since grade 12, I guess, when I transferred to Mowat. Football, you were the kicker.
It was the kicker.
Then you went on to
130 pounds.
Yeah, but you kicked the field goals.
Yeah.
And then you went on to college and you won a national championship.
Yeah. Won a Vanier in 2009 with Queen's University.
Sick.
Super cool experience.
So we're not talking about sports, although that may come up because he's a big Green Bay fan. But we will be talking about the education system. So you became an educator.
Yeah. So 2011, finished my degree at Queen's and then went to Teachers College, PDP out East.
What's Teachers College?
So Teachers College is like the degree you do after your bachelor's of arts honors, whatever.
Yeah.
If that's your interest, you have teachables that you take in that teaching degree. So for example, mine was geography, history. I had a minor in psych, so that kind of helped a little bit more.
Sure.
And then for secondary, which is my field of work, you need 2 teachables. So again, those 2 teachables allowed me to come back and teach. So did it out East, came back, got hired on right away, got super lucky, and then spent about 9-10 years at Bateman Secondary, which is on the east side of Abbotsford.
Yeah. And
then the last 4 years, I've been vice principal at the alternate school, which is Bakerview on Marshall Road, right by the hospital. The alternate school, Bakerview is the only alternate that we have in Abbotsford. Every district has an alternate school.
What is an alternate school? I mean, you knew that there was the next question.
Yeah, of course. So alternate school, if you were to Google alternate education, it would come up as schools going above and beyond support for students in need.
Okay.
So, for example, it could look like smaller class sizes, extra educational assistants, extra youth care workers, food, flexible timetabling, et cetera. So what you and I experienced at Mowat, it was, hey, we're going 4 blocks a day, A, B, C, D. We're going math, PE, socials, English, whatever. And our day goes from 8 to 2:30, and then we go to football practice.
Yeah.
Here it's a bit of a later arrival, flexible scheduling if you need halftime programming, if you need to come 3 days a week, 4 days a week.
So we're talking like somebody could potentially be a single mom and she can't be as flexible or something along those lines, or what are we talking about?
Repeat that question, sorry.
So like, why would someone need a flexible schedule? Like if someone was a single mom, she's trying to finish grade 12, maybe she can't get there when she should, or like what's the
No, it's for school age kids, so 18 and under. There is a component of adult ed.
Okay.
But let's just say,
I was assuming like a student, like a grade 12 or whatever, trying to finish her GED or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's a bit of a process to get into the school that I'm at. So it's by referral. You can't just walk in and be like, hey, I'm going to register here.
Makes sense.
Whereas your catchment area was Mowat or Hanson, so you go to your school.
That's just kind of to vet the kids, make sure that they actually do need the assistance, stuff like that. Because if I was in grade 12, I'd be like, oh, I can screw with this. I'm definitely going to this school.
Totally.
Yeah.
You can kind of coach your way to get there. But we actually do get audited, so we have to prove to the province that we are going above and beyond for these kids.
Right.
And these kids, and sometimes adults, that they require this support. So the funding piece, a kid can take one course at our school, and we get full funding for them at our school, and that's every alternate school in the province. Whereas you would need to take 7 or 8 courses at Mowat or Hanson before you transfer to Mowat. The 7 or 8 classes, you would get funding for those classes.
Right.
So you need to attend a full-time schedule, essentially.
So that's kind of something I hope we would get into eventually too, is like the whole back end of the system. Like how does it work? How does the funding work? I know trustees are voted in, so who runs, that whole process. So like, I know you're now administrative, right? Are you guys more tasked with the running of the school?
Yeah. So we're operational day-to-day kind of stuff. So a bit of backstory. when you're a teacher, you're part of the BCTF, so Teachers Union. When you move out of that role, so for example, myself, in the last 4 years, I'm a part of an association. So you lose your
you're not a union anymore?
No.
Ooh.
So there's, it's a bit of a risk, you can call it that.
So you get fired?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If you don't.
Because you hear teachers with tenure,
totally.
they just get shuffled.
Yeah. And sometimes there's administrators who want to go back to the classroom and they go back to the union that we're a part of.
Right.
But they don't lose their seniority. They still have their,
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a dance if people want to move up in that world. You're now, you have different expectations, right? So you report to your assistant superintendent and superintendent, et cetera, just like everybody does, but
right.
Maybe a bit more
direct.
Yeah. The trustees, you mentioned it, like they get voted in by the people of Abbotsford.
Sure.
And then
So each school board has their own trustees. Is there a set amount, or is it just based on the population?
That's a great question. I want to say Abbotsford has 7, I think. I should know that, to be honest, but
7 to 10 or something like that. I thought it was in that range.
Yeah.
So whatever. And
the name that gets thrown out a lot is Dan Peterson. He's been around a long time. He's a trustee. He was a principal, vice principal when I was at WJ Mowat.
Oh, okay.
So he kind of went through those ranks as well. So he's now a trustee in Abbotsford.
I know some people, like Ed Fast, for example, politician, he's just stepping down, so it's in my mind, but he started off as a school trustee, then he was a city councilor, then he ran for Fed. And so, I mean, is this a lot of guys use this as like a stepping stone to get into politics as well?
That actually, I don't even know.
Oh, okay.
Potentially. Yeah, I could see that being the case. I think, I know I'm using Stan. I didn't ask for his permission, but for him, I know he wants to give back to the community
right.
that he serves, right?
Yeah.
And I would say I kind of fall into that line of work as well, where any job that I've had has been about servant leadership, supporting kids.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in your profession have to have that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
You're not getting rich.
You're not getting rich, but I feel like there's an obligation there to, let me put it this way. So I think, two supportive parents, for example, someone put me up the elevator and gave me some success. And
sure.
I find, my current life, 2 kids, healthy, happy family,
yep.
education, I feel like I've hit the lottery, right?
Sure.
So I feel that as educators, we need to bring the elevator back down and help support maybe some students who
didn't have it
yeah. or didn't get a full deck of cards, et cetera.
Yeah.
Especially at the school that I'm at, right? You see a lot of generational trauma.
That's huge, dude.
Yeah. And a lot of circumstances that, maybe I didn't experience, right? So It's important that we want to give back. And I think to go back to Stan and the trustees, some of them want to give back to their community and help align the district in a way that it's going to make every student successful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the trustees are voted in. They run for 2-4 years, whatever it is. I think they don't all get voted in at the same time. Like they go through different cycles or whatever. It doesn't matter. We don't have to get into that. That's not the point of the podcast. But are they dictating what happens to the superintendent, or like who does the superintendent answer to?
The superintendent answers to the trustees, who essentially the answer to the ministry, right? So they all have set objectives that they want to accomplish. Let's call it one of our pillars is student success. So what does that look like?
Yeah, what is success?
We really focus on grad rates, especially for our Indigenous youth. There was a bit of a dip there, and I think over the past few years we're doing better at getting all of our students graduated.
Okay.
I think, and this is a bit of a tangent, I think there's a big push for, especially in our millennial generation, to go to university, college. Now we're in kind of that Gen Z, Alpha, and there's still that push, by the system to get people to college, university. But in my professional opinion, I think we should be setting students up for success in the trades, laborers.
Yeah.
There's a friends of ours that didn't go to college, university, and they were making a lot more than teachers in their first 5 years of work, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think you're right though. Like success isn't just a one does all. I think the education system, not to talk bad about it, but it was kind of tunnel visioned a little bit. Like great education, get a job, you're a lawyer, you're whatever, and that's great if that's what you want to do. But there's a lot of dudes running businesses, construction, and like power lines and stuff like that. I know guys that work for BC Hydro making great money, working in the Frankenstorms and all that kind of stuff, making God knows how much overtime, and they love it. They love their job. They love working with their hands. They love being outside. Like, they just love it.
Yeah.
So, not everyone's going to do the same job, and that's a good thing.
And that's where I think where the education system is going, at least I like to see it go, is...
And we're going to be screwed if we don't have plumbers and electricians.
100%. 100%. And I think we need to be learning outside the four walls of the classroom.
Right.
Our current system was built on, kind of the industrial World War
Totally,
era.
dude. Yeah.
The parents are going to work. Maybe there's a stay-at-home mom. Kids go to school, and it's kind of like your 9 to 5. It's repetitive, right? And we're still in that. I would say we're still in that model.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is not light at the end of the tunnel, but there's a bit of a shift. And personally, I like to see more flexible scheduling for kids, especially in the secondary level.
Yeah.
When I reference things, that's kind of where I live. But
right.
Students coming at 8 o'clock, the science does tell us that kids aren't ready to learn till 10:30 in the morning. So why are we putting them on buses and dropping them off at school?
Yeah, because it's daycare.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
right?
daycare. It's not about what's best for the educational process for the child. It's what's best for mom and dad.
It could be perceived as that 100%.
Yeah. So, and that's my personal opinion. But,
yeah.
What's the goal of education? We want to be preparing these kids for life. And like, I think you hit the nail on the head too. Like, we're not all coming from the same background. Like, people often look through life through their filter of like, this is what's normal. But like, kids go to school hungry. They haven't eaten because there's no food at home. Mm-hmm. They've got holes in their shoes, and that's the way they live their life. And then you've got, on the other side, getting dropped off in a Porsche or a brand new Tesla or whatever it is. And it's like, they're going to the same school.
Yeah.
This is the same, you know what I mean? It's wild. Like, it's like, you guys are kind of against the wall in a little bit of a way, because you got to make it accessible for everyone. And there's no, you know what I mean? It's not like I mentioned before, it's like a Catholic school. Everyone's Catholic. They're all the similar belief systems, whatever. So it's all pretty easy to, but if you're different religion, you've got different backgrounds. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I would say, well, the first point that you mentioned about the food, like if you were to Google Maslow before Bloom, it's edu speak, but essentially Maslow's hierarchy of needs is,
sorry, who's Maslow?
Maslow was an educator, researcher.
Okay.
The thought there was their needs to be met before they're ready to learn.
Yeah,
Whereas
for sure.
Bloom's taxonomy was, the academic piece.
Right.
So if you're to look at it online, it's easy to look at it, but it's always in the back of my mind. Like, if a kid's walking through the building, I want to make sure that they're in a mental state that is conducive to their day.
Yeah.
Do they need food?
Mm-hmm.
Do they need a new pair of socks? And you can't do it for every kid. I
yeah,
get
sure,
it.
sure,
It's
sure.
hard to do, but in the world that I'm in right now, that's kind of what I do, as vetting them as they walk through the door.
Yeah.
What do they look like? Are they frustrated?
Yeah.
So before they sit down in the chair, it's important to say, hey, call them by their name. That's super important. And then they remember that for that day. Sometimes they remember that for the rest of their educational career, right? But they need those needs to be met before they're ready to learn. And imagine, your abuser or is running around town chasing you, and then you're ready to go to school the next day.
Yeah, no chance.
Your thoughts are somewhere else.
Yeah,
right?
you're in survival mode.
You're in survival mode.
You're just trying to live.
Totally.
And it's like, I don't care about what happened to Napoleon. During the French Revolution. Like, they don't care.
Totally.
They're literally in survival mode.
Yeah, and maybe you're taking care of your siblings, or just so many different circumstances. And again, that's just my perspective right now. But it definitely is a challenge these days, I find. So we want to take care of those needs before they're ready to learn, right?
Sure.
And I'm not saying that all students don't have challenges. They do. They just look different.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So the next piece about the inclusivity, in the public setting, you have a vast variety of personalities, religions,
everything, backgrounds,
backgrounds.
What your parents look like, what the family unit looks like. Are they divorced and remarried, and you've got step siblings? Like, there's a bajillion different variables that different kids have.
Totally. And the neat part about it is, the public setting is supposed to be inclusive, right? So what does that look like? What does your day look like? What does your week look like? What are the teachers doing? What are the support staff doing? What's admin doing to support people of all backgrounds?
Right.
And so, for example, if we're going to get granular here, there's things that we do at our school called the Indigenous calendar. The calendar of Indigenous events for the calendar. I can't remember what it's called,
Sure.
but we do something where every month we highlight something culture about the Indigenous community.
Okay.
And yet your yesterday or the podcast previously with Ian about the Fraser fisheries and him working with the Indigenous communities, I was totally captivated for the last 30 minutes just about the whole his experience, the process, and
I was too.
and his connection with the Indigenous communities and, you know, the pockets of people here and there. I'm just like, wow, that's unbelievable, because that's kind of, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
You know, we do things, I don't know, leadership. They do different events throughout the year, right?
Right.
So it just looks different in every school. So I'm having a hard time of, you know, picking a good example, but it's there. We try to be inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm super open to adjusting and being flexible and taking in new ideas and initiatives and supporting different things that people want to do. Right.
Right.
Now, you know, going back to elementary days, right? Like bake sales, like, or, you know, country food days, and like people bringing different stuff. And I'm like,
Our kids have so much stuff, dude.
Right.
Your kids are in elementary now, right?
They're
Almost?
up in they're 2 and 4.
Oh, sorry, okay,
daycare,
yeah.
but they're attached to Irene Keller, which is at the top of Eagle Mountain.
Yep.
You know, brand new building that's gorgeous, and it was actually just a transition because the daycare is from Archway Community Services,
Right.
Which Abbotsford Community Services.
Yeah, actually Sutton. I'm a Sutton realtor, and we do a lot of support with Archway. We do
Archway,
golf
great.
tournament. We're a title sponsor, and yeah, so they do a ton of stuff in the community.
Which is, and I think they're great. They're great people, great staff. But I mean, long story short, my kids were at New Beginnings at Mowat. And then once they got a bit older, they're now transitioned to the other daycare, which is at Irene Keller.
Cool.
But I think we're in the Sandy Hill catchment. You know,
Yep.
I have nothing but total respect for all the schools. I think there's 46 schools in Abbotsford, but
Wow.
it's like, where do you want to go? I know people kind of angle to like, oh, I want to go to this school and, you know, get a different address, or we want to move or whatever, right? But
And honestly, dude, like I've found every single school has good teachers in it. Like you can have some, they say, oh, this teacher's mailing it in or whatever. But like I've had usually pretty good experiences with teachers. Teachers they love kids. You wouldn't be in this profession if you didn't love kids. You know what I mean? They genuinely care usually, you know what I mean? So I've always found it's usually the kid, you know, the teacher that your kid gets that really makes the experience for the school.
yeah,
You know, people are like, oh, what's the rating? What's this? And it's like, it doesn't really matter. Like they're all going to educate your kid, but it's the big thing is like, you know, your teacher connects with your kid's going to have a great experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I look at it.
yeah. And I think, you know, you look back at some of our favorite teachers. It wasn't so much, you know, the lessons they did. And maybe, you know, there's a part of that, right?
It was the connection.
It's the connection, right? And being, I consider myself a servant leader or relational leader.
Right.
You know, I kind of referenced it earlier. You know, when a kid walks through the door, saying their name, they know that they matter to you, or that you care,
it's
right?
the sweetest sound. If you want to talk the psychology of the name, it's the sweetest sound in any language for the person that hears it. So like your name is you. So someone like saying, hey, your name, you know, it's a connection. It's a bit of connection.
Totally.
And the biggest thing that especially kids in your school, like, and I'm not to pick on it, but it's like they need connection. That's the one thing that they're probably in a situation where they're not getting the right type of connection at home, or they've never gotten it. So when you're giving them, you know, bids of connection, it's a learning process for them that they can let their guard down over time. I was this is silly, but I was a camp counselor when I was 19, and it was crazy. We had these inner city Indigenous kids coming from East Van, and these kids were tough. Like they were hard. Like they were hard. I mean that their life was hard and it made them hard. And these are children. These are 9 to 15-year-olds. Like they're kids. And they were the hardest ones to get through. But when you did, my God, did they just freaking attach to you. They loved you. Like they were just like, they realized that you genuinely cared and you were there for them and you put that effort into them. Eventually that wall comes down and there's a really hurt kid in there that really needs someone to like connect to them.
You're giving me chills.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. So it's like it's hard work, and people don't really realize it. Like these kids are going through it, man. Like they have things that you just can't imagine that they're dealing with. A 9-year-old shouldn't deal with some things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
I was reading the other day. What was actually brought to our attention last year, but just some more information on it. The WHO, World Health Organization, declared loneliness being an epidemic. So
I saw that.
1 in 4 adults will experience loneliness at some point in their life.
And reduce your life expectancy by 26 years.
And they say,
26 years.
And I think in there it was like an equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
That's right.
And so
I read the same article. Yeah, great article.
And you go back to the connection piece, right? Like if these kids are experiencing loneliness, I think it's been highlighted, a bit of a catalyst by the pandemic, and you're kind of isolated, and you're behind a screen, which we can talk about later. But
that's why drinking went up and all that kind of stuff. When consumption of all the illegals went up and stuff like that.
And it's just like that's what we're fighting, right? We're trying to get out of it and teaching these Gen Alpha and Gen Zs to communicate and connect with kids.
And you touched on it when you said generational. Like this happened to their parents. It happened to their parents. Like this is generational stuff. And it's like, how do you break someone out of something that's happening at home for generations? Like it's wild. And you talk about the indigenous community specifically. They've let's be real here. They've been getting it for a long time. It's been tough waters for these people. So they've got generations of this stuff. And it's like, do you know who Gabor Mate is?
I love him. Yeah.
I love Gabor Mate. Yeah. Like he is. If I had a spirit animal, if I could choose a shaman, he would be it. Like I would take him as I would take him. So listening to his books and stuff like that. I'm just like, it's like you need to someone conscious enough to go and help these people. They need it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't mean like the indigenous community. I mean anyone with trauma. Yeah. Generational trauma. Totally. So we need people to step up. So this is a really tough. I wasn't expecting the podcast to go down this road. But no, it's okay. But it's a tough, multifaceted problem, and I think it's good that you have your school, and we have that kind of awareness as far as the ministry is aware of this issue. So that's good. Yeah. But yeah. I wanted to. We can keep talking. You guys.
No,
go ahead.
No, it's good. I referenced the screen thing earlier.
Yeah.
I think that's another.
Oh, like too much screen time?
Yeah, if we're talking issues or things that we're seeing, like definitely the cell phone use is a bit of a problem.
Oh, I can imagine. Dude, I can imagine.
And there's, I think, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, everything's designed to
take your attention.
Yeah, you're a data point, right?
Your attention is the commodity.
Totally.
They want your eyes on the screen. So everything's literally engineered for your attention.
Yeah. And they're so immersed. Kids are so immersed in, and I'm guilty of it too. Yeah. I was reading a thing the other day where Twitter kind of acts like a slot machine, right? Yeah. Like if new information comes up, you hit like the update, and it just kind of scrolls like a slot machine. Sure. And you're getting all this stuff, and it's like, oh, well, it just updated again. So I'm going to look at it. It's like you keep going and keep going. So I'm definitely guilty of that because that's where I get my information. I don't have the province of the Vancouver Sun anymore. I'm trying to get real-time information quickly. Yeah. And imagine adding that to that mentality to Snapchat and Instagram and people
TikTok.
Trying to get TikTok and likes and all these things, and it's chewing up a lot of people's time. And then you're trying to teach or educate these people on top of that. It's hard.
And how do you try to teach a kid? It's like, listen, I'm going to be a content creator, and it's like because you see some kid that's making millions of dollars a year, and it's like, bro, maybe you'll be a 36-year-old failure to launch living in your parents' basement. Yeah, like let's get an education just in case.
Just in case.
Let's be safe here.
And it's funny you say that because back in my Bateman days, there was a kid who, and this was kind of a novelty at the time, but he was super good at gaming and going down to tournaments in Atlanta and making all this cash. At a super young age. And so what do you say to a kid like that? Oh, you got to be in school. You're late for class. Like, I think his calling was there. Like,
bro, I just made $1 million last week in Atlanta. 100%. I'm good.
And if I think the magic number is 16, if he decides to say, I want to move on with my content creating or gaming or whatever, and I'm making enough money to support myself and my family, then I'm going to do that. And you can't fault a kid for that. But at the same time, I do agree with you. Like, they should get their education just in case, right? Because at the time they're making a lot of money where it could be a bit influential to remove yourself from the high school experience, right? Right. So, that's a hard one.
Dude, you talk about like digital stuff in the classroom, man. Like when we had calculators, I'd write like boobless on the calculator. Like I was distracted by
the upside down,
black and white, upside down words, lawless, whatever you could write there.
I know. And now, if that happens, it comes to my attention. I got to take it away, right?
Right. Yeah. It's just ridiculous, man. So I can't imagine what you guys are dealing with.
But I mean, the flip side of that, I mean, to kind of change the topic a little bit, is there's a lot of resources out there now, like school AI, for example, the digital world, what's happening. So I think, from a teacher's perspective or educator's perspective, they're saving a ton of time because you can now, I can walk into a classroom now if I pick a subject, pick a subject.
Science.
So let's say Science 9.
Yep.
As the teacher, I can go in there and be like, hey, give me a week's lesson plan. I can type it into the school AI, and it will pop out a lesson plan for the week without me, instead of the old binders full of stuff.
Dude, I never even thought of that.
Yeah, so now you're saving a ton of time, and the kids on the backside of it, they can use school AI as well, and they can. ChatGPT. There's concerns where we're plagiarizing. I'm using ChatGPT and AI to do all my stuff. But I think if we use some of the resources that are available to us appropriately, you can see a lot of success, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
But I think we're going away from 3D printers, when we were at Moet, 3D printers, like that kind of technology, now we're getting into the AI world a little bit. And, what does that look like?
And it's not going anywhere. Like screens, like they started to come in and they haven't left. They're not going anywhere. Like it's like, I don't think AI is going anywhere.
Yeah.
People talk about their concerns of AI and stuff like that, but it's not going to leave. And it's going to change the landscape for professions across the board. Like they've created an AI and it has like a 99.97% accuracy for law. So you can go to this AI and you can ask it questions. Sorry, it's like let's say it's 97. I can't remember the exact digit, but it's so high, it's higher than an actual lawyer.
Like so the bar exam, you mean?
No, like if you went to an AI and you asked a law question.
Oh, I see.
The AI can spit you out an answer and say, you should do this or that. This is the document that you need to file, blah, blah, blah. Like all of it. And it's more accurate than an actual lawyer, practicing lawyer. That's just law. That's one aspect of one profession that AI is going to interfere with.
Yeah.
Right? So that's going to be on every type of profession.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, instead of like fighting it, like people fought the Industrial Revolution. Think about this. Okay, there was people that made needles. Okay, their profession was to make needles for like cloth and whatever. Because in England, the textiles, like all the cloth and stuff like that, that was the biggest industry at the time. Then somebody made a machine that made needles, and these guys were protesting the machine that made needles because it made their job obsolete. Took the job away. Right. The taxi drivers were protesting Uber. Right? Because this is taking our jobs, blah, blah, blah. Like that's progress. Progress doesn't stop. You can try to mitigate it a little bit, but it's still going to come. Instead of trying to fight that fight, figure out, okay, how can we use this to our advantage?
Yeah.
Like it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Yeah.
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 You know what I mean? And I don't have the answer for that. I'm not saying it's an easy answer.
No.
I'm just saying I think we have to have an open mind because it's not going anywhere.
And I would agree. I think the biggest thing, I'm on the other side now. So being on the admin side of things, how do we support the teachers that are saying, hey, this kid's on his phone all day or whatever?
Yeah. You know what you guys need? You need something that the teacher can put on his desk that just blocks their phones
like
out.
A jammer?
Yeah, like a jammer. Just like there's no in and outs, no Wi-Fi hookups, nothing. It just jams their phones for the hour that they're in the lesson. And guess what? Now they got to look at you.
Yeah. Yeah, can listen to you.
Yeah,
exactly.
They got no other option. School.
But there are districts in the States that they have like a lock and key, personal lock and key for their phones, and the success rates back to
that sounds smart.
It's they're skyrocketing again because kids are engaged in the work and they're learning, and they're not distracted by their phones. But
Googling something doesn't mean you know it.
Totally, and I think a good educator tries to teach non-Googleable answers, if that makes sense. So like
make them think.
Yeah, a bit of inquiry, right?
Yeah.
There's a bit of tact behind that, but I mean, everything's Googleable. But like, is there a way where you can get kids just the learning process, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can we critically think?
Yeah.
And that's part of being a graduate, right? Like, what's the end goal? We want to get them graduated, ready for society. So
learning the knowledge is one thing, but like teaching how to think is so important, and that's got to be the emphasis. Like, you want to be able to take information, like you're listening to a news source and you're going to go, okay, like let me take this critically. And I'm not saying that the news is bad. I'm just saying like wherever you're getting your information and go through the filters. Like, okay, where is this information coming from? And you go read the report and you go, oh, this is interesting. The person that funded this report is the company that it's, promoting it. Like
it's
giving
the money.
Interesting. Oh, okay. So maybe this is a little bit biased, and having the ability to kind of go through that, I think is important. People need to learn how to think, how to reason.
Yeah.
I think we've lost Stoicism, ancient Greek Stoicism, where they would literally think how to think. They taught themselves how to think.
Yeah. Super cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
And we don't do that. We're like philosophy. I don't know why is just not important enough for people.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to reason and to like mull things over and over and over until you actually go, oh, and then you can change your thinking.
Yeah.
Right. A big problem is we have people on one side and the other side, and there's no communication and there's no mulling over and changing of ways. You're just in a what's the word? A vacuum of the same people around you reaffirming your belief system, and it's like doesn't
and then
work.
all the algorithms on your phone
are keeping you in there.
Totally.
Why? Because the phone doesn't care whether you're on the left or the right or you're religious or non-religious. The phone just wants your attention. It just wants you to look at it.
Totally.
So it's like, you know what I mean?
And that's the beauty to me. That's the, I mean, of the public system.
Yeah.
I love the neutrality, right? Like we all can live in a space in this ecosystem together. We can learn together and succeed together. And what does that look like, right? You know, as the example before, going back to the calendar of events, right? For a variety of different things. But yeah, super cool. I think the phones, I mean, this might be an unpopular opinion with my colleagues, but they're a bit of an issue. And it's an issue with me. I think the adults as well. I would say, dude, I'm addicted, right?
I do it. Yeah, I do it. I come home and I've got 3 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, and I'm looking at my phone like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah,
Put your phone down, bro. Go play with your kids.
Totally.
I mean, and it's
hard, right?
Yeah,
it's hard.
Like, I got an email and I got to respond to it. It's time sensitive. It's not time sensitive.
100%. Things can wait.
Things can wait.
And you know, my wife definitely reminds me of that as well, right? Like you're home, the kids go to bed in a couple hours, just put your phone away.
You told her, Dad, Green Bay Packers just signed this guy and I really care about it. And it's like, Hattie, we're having dinner here.
This extended Jordan Love for a 5-year contract. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe Aaron Rodgers is gone.
Yeah.
No, I get it. It's hard. But I mean, that's why I love doing what I do. And trying to get these kids to graduate, succeed, and be a member of society. Because that's essentially what we want to do, right?
Yeah. It's a contributing member of society.
Yes.
Someone who's, you know, paying their fair share and working and successful and happy and paying their taxes and having kids of their own. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. And that's a tough, man. Like I've dealt with these kids from East Vancouver, these indigenous communities and stuff like that. They have it rough. It's hard, man. But if you can, if you can break through, a buddy of mine, Mark, he actually works with them now, and he grew up in the programs and stuff like that. Single mom, had it rough, but here he is, now a functioning, contributing member, great guy, like solid dude, and contributing to his community. It's freaking awesome to see.
Yeah, and those are the stories that we love to hear, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then come back and share those stories.
Yeah. I mean, Anyways, I wanted to ask you more too. I'm going to segue into something else, but like the structure of, you mentioned earlier, you know, things are a certain way. There's talk amongst maybe the staff or whatever that, you know, what if we did it this way or did it that way, or maybe we could try this. How does that process work? Like, how do you guys as an administrative body, you've got teachers on one side, you've got, you know, students, parents on the other. I would put you in the middle because you're, you know, principal, board, what do you call it, the superintendent, the trustees, they're kind of in the middle.
The school board, yeah.
You guys are kind of in the middle. So how do you guys, and it's a big ship. Like you guys are in a big, slow turning. The bigger the ship, the slower it turns. Like if you look at the cargo vessels that go across the ocean, the bigger they are, the slower they are. Okay. It's for the people in radio land that don't. So you guys are in a big ship, like as big as it comes almost. You guys are as big as healthcare. You know, you got education, you got healthcare. These are the big things, big public services that we're doing. So how do you change? What is it like? What can we do as parents to help you guys?
As parents, well, let me just generalize, I guess.
Yeah, go general.
All stakeholders.
Yes.
With change, like we're kind of handcuffed. Well, I wouldn't say handcuffed is the right word. Change is hard, right? Like we've been in this model for a long time, but I think
since the Rockefellers wanted more employees in their
exactly,
factories.
Totally, right? And it's
that's the story. I don't know how much that's true, but that's
there's merit to that. And I think the 9 to 5 for people and going to school, it's just the way it is. It's like that's just the way we do it, and that's a common phrase in education, right?
And our whole society is predicated on the 9 to 5, so it's pretty hard to. You know what I mean? Like I think there was talk in Europe where they're going to go to a 4-day work week or whatever, and they're going to go to 3-day weekends and stuff. And apparently that increases production and happiness or whatever. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
but that's a long time coming.
I think it's closer than you think.
No. I mean, it's been a long time to get to this point.
I gotcha.
And I think that's something that should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Throw an extra 2 hours on your day. You get an extra day off. I'll make that change. I'll make that. Yeah. You know.
And there are districts in BC that have a 4-day work week, or sorry, 4-day school day, because
Where are they?
yeah, the interior,
Okay.
because they're taking an hour bus ride to get to school, so they're going to add on
Right.
the hours of the day. You guys get Friday off, but
Right.
so I mean, there is that already established.
Sure.
But I do think we're closer than we think to, I wouldn't say maybe 4-day work weeks, but I think maybe a bit more flexible scheduling.
Yeah.
You're already seeing it in Surrey. They are so overcrowded that they have to alternate they have to alternate their timetable. So
Wait a minute.
A, B, C,
The
D.
school system is so crowded in Surrey
Yes.
that they have to stagger the students,
Yes.
and the teachers are going to double duty teach.
Well, the teachers would have their load, so then you're having
More teachers,
more teachers, more
but less
staff.
classrooms.
That's the piece, right? You're now kind of fighting over space, so you have to
Right.
make sure there's enough space. So now
Well,
you're
real
seeing-
estate's expensive, man.
and
It's hard for the school board to buy stuff.
it's hard to get capital funding to do these seismic changes. So now they're
Right.
adding on portables, right?
Right.
And sometimes
Dude, the amount of portables is wild.
well, I would say I just read an article. Surrey has stopped taking in students in their own catchment because they're so full. So imagine that, like you live by Mowat, but you can't get in because
Well,
they're
I
so
mean,
full.
you're paying taxes. What do you do?
That's a great question. So that's a question for the premier, the superintendent. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard.
wow.
That's above me right now.
But how are we like? I guess our population is growing by immigration quite quickly in Canada. So that would, I mean, I see it in the housing sector, but you would see it in your side too, because you're going to have more students, more kids. Right?
Yeah, and I think we're what's Abbotsford, 20,000 plus students,
Wow.
and we have 45 plus schools. But we're projected to go more and more, right? Like
yeah.
I
There's
think
no.
it's like 25,000 students by 2030 or something like that. Like that's our projection. But
Right.
so imagine adding, let's just hypothetically say 5,000 kids. Where do you put them, right? You need the space. So to answer your question about change, I think we're in the world now. We have to get a bit creative. So that might mean flexible scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Different timetabling.
It sounds almost like your guys are already at the gills. Like you're already like you're holding it together as best you can, and it's squeezing through already.
Yeah.
So how are you going to change the curriculum and change the approach of school if you can't even?
Yeah.
You're barely
It's
surviving.
It's hard, and there's already a teacher shortage, right? And
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Why is there a teacher shortage? I thought there was an abundance of teachers.
I think the pandemic really took a toll on people.
Did a lot of teachers step out and retire?
Well, I think you're seeing a lot of baby boomers retire.
Yeah,
that's
normal. Yeah,
that's normal. And then
I think it was the last 2022, 2023, maybe it was 23 and 24 are the highest segment of baby boomers hitting 65. So it's of the generation, that's the two peak years of the most amount of people, and they're now retiring.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a change in like healthcare. We're going to see a change in like old folks' homes in 10, 15 years, like everything. Like it's going to be
and my wife works in the cancer unit in Abbotsford, and they're stretched too, right? The public sector is just so stretched, and how
man, this is wild.
Yeah, so how we fix it, I don't know. I think it's a multifaceted issue.
Yeah,
but focusing on education, I think some of the behaviors are deterring the teachers, right? Like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, some of the behaviors we're seeing in school, I'm just going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Which is that's one issue, right?
It's a small segment of a multifaceted thing.
And sometimes you're getting teachers. I don't get my own classroom. I got to share. Like I don't. Whatever. I'm going to move on. So I'm just generalizing that.
Again, there's a lot of tons of things, contributing factors.
But I think our whole system is stretched, right? And not just education. So how do we change? It's a big ship. That's super hard. You need top down, but you also need bottom up, if that makes sense. Like you need people on board on both sides to be in agreement. And then you have, like I said, you have associations, you have the ministry, you have the union, so they collectively have to come to an agreement, right? I'm talking major change, right?
Dude, I know how slow it is to get 5 people in the room to agree to something.
Yes.
When there's just the 5 people in the room that need to agree to it, let alone everyone that they're thinking of that's not in the room that they have to answer to, and then you've got 3 organizations trying to make the decision or whatever to collectively agree to something. That's wild.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
If I were to be so bold and radical, I would say I would like the 4-day work week, not for the less days or the added day, but because
which would be sweet.
which would be sweet. Friday,
Yeah, woo.
Friday fishing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the science does show that more production gets done in that 4 day that 4 day week.
Yeah.
The Friday, I think you could be super flexible. Again, secondary. That's where I live right now.
Yeah.
But I think the Friday you can have kids doing electives or things or passion projects or whatever.
Sure.
And they can still attend school. Like there's just there's so many different things that you can do and experiment.
Is there anything like CTC still? CTC was like the program for trades where you would go to school, like I think it was like 3 days a week, and then you would do your like trade of choice for 2 days a week, something along those lines.
Yeah, so I guess that's where ATSS is right now, right? Apples for Traditional.
Yeah.
So I don't think so, but there is like apprenticeship programs. So like you can get trade samplers. You can go to, if you're in grade 11 or 12, you can go to UFE and kind of sample different trades.
Cool.
There's apprenticeships.
Okay.
There's tons of opportunity, and that's the one thing I'll say that our district does really a good job of is providing those opportunities.
Yeah.
Because I do think the learning has to go above and beyond the four walls, right? Like if a kid is passionate about something, why are we putting up a barrier for them to stick it out in that classroom? So let's get them doing different electives or apprenticeship programs. Not every single kid's going to college, university, and I know it's hard to hear, especially with even my colleagues, right, and my own family. But that's the reality, right? Like not everyone's made for college, university. And
yeah, dude, I barely got out of high school. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I did after school or after high school stuff. Like I got my real estate degree, and I did other courses and stuff, but not degree, but whatever, license.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't want to be there. Like you couldn't have made me go to school at 18. I just didn't want to. Now I look back and go,
maybe I
probably should have done something.
Yeah.
Probably should have, whatever. And so the difference between like a lot of, so like you talked about, you came from two loving parents and whatever, supportive. I didn't have that. My parents were divorced in, different situation or whatever. So it's like I was working and different things, but no kid is going to have the same approach or story, right? So it's like this. I'll put it in context so everyone in radio land can understand. I'm a Raiders fan. My kids watch me play or watch me watch football, and I'm cheering for the Raiders. My kids are now cheering for the Raiders. They're going to like the Raiders because I like the Raiders, right? They shouldn't like the Raiders because we haven't been good in 20 years, but that's what they're going to do, right? So it's like kids will grow up doing what their parents do because that's what their parents see. Dad's a plumber, I'm going to be a plumber. Dad's a teacher, I'm going to be a teacher, right? So it's like what the education system should do is give kids an opportunity who maybe want to cheer for Green Bay to learn a different trade, or like, hey, maybe your dad's a plumber, maybe you should be a teacher. Your dad's a plumber, maybe you should be a doctor, and vice versa. Dad's a doctor, maybe you like trades, maybe you like working with your hands. Like, you know what I mean? We don't have to put kids in the exact same thing. Like, there's just such a myriad of choice that
totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the way I would look at it and approach it. But
yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of bounded by what the ministry puts out, right? Curricular wise and instructional minutes and blah, 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 blah. And then the school districts, they have to follow suit to a certain degree, right? But there's some flexibility there based on collective agreements and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's again above me right now, from where I operate.
Can I ask you a question about like private schools and like religious schools and stuff like that? Are you guys seeing that growing in response to like, okay, and like the elephant in the room is there's a lot of different rights, that you see in schools, and you actually talk to teachers and think, oh, that's not actually happening. That's not, like, oh, kids peeing in litter boxes and stuff. You hear these crazy tales of these weird, scenarios and stuff like that. Like, can we talk about that?
Sure.
Like, I mean, like, so first of all, what is going on, and why do you have to address it, and why do you have to respect it in that capacity?
Well, let's go with the private sector.
This is multifaceted. So I think, is one causing the other, and is it going up? And let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I think the private schools, I mean, I have no issues with. It's their family's decision to send those kids. But being born and raised in Abbotsford, gone through the public sector. My dad was a principal teacher, vice principal for 30 years or so. Again, the Raider fan analogy, like I followed suit. I thought what he did was incredible stuff, and he was a people person. So I have belief in the public sector, right? That's where I've lived. I've had friends. We have friends that have gone to the private sector and they've succeeded and done well.
Sure.
I do think there's going to be, and this is just my personal belief, I think there's a bit of a trajectory where, I've heard rumors of, basketball academies. So kids are going to school just for basketball academies. They're paying through the yin yang.
Yeah, because we've got hockey academies and stuff like that. So, okay.
Yeah, so it's, let's just use basketball as the example.
Yep.
You go to school, you get your curriculum that, by the ministry, you have your teachers, and then you have basketball practice or whatever, and then you're part of this school academy. But it's just basketball related.
Right.
Whereas the public sector, we have, all these different sports that we offer and courses and blah, blah, blah. I do think that there's going to be more choice in the future. When and how that looks like, I'm not sure, but that's just my personal projection.
Right.
The added layer of the inclusivity, I've heard the rumor too about people acting like cats and the litter boxes being provided. None of that to my knowledge is true. I'll say that outright.
Okay.
But there is a obligation to address students, to who they want to be, right? And we need to support those kids because they could be going through things, on a personal level.
Yeah.
Is that any of our business where our mandate is to teach them, get them graduated, right? And it's safe. So whenever kids, kick down my door in the office, I always tell them, my two jobs that I really focus on is keeping you safe at school and getting you graduated, right? And that's a collective team effort with teachers, support staff, and whatever, and even their families and parents, right? So that I don't worry so much about the other piece. My job is to keep them safe, welcomed at school, safe for everybody.
How do you balance one child's needs with the rest of the kids in the classroom?
That's hard. It's super hard. And that's why teachers are so exhausted, or educators are so exhausted, right? Like you're tending to the needs of, let's just a secondary example again, 30 kids in a classroom.
Sure.
Different personalities, different races, different backgrounds. Yeah. And, some kids might have their hand up more than others asking for help.
Sure.
Some are going to be self-driven and don't need a lot of support. Yeah. Some might have a crappy day one day and they roll in and they have a blowout, right? How do you deal with that?
Right.
And then it gets awkward with everybody else. So I think there's a bit of tact to how you operate day to day as an educator. And maybe that's why there's a bit of burnout with some teachers, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't help also that there's a TOC shortage-ish a bit. I mean,
for sure there is.
Across the province. Yeah. I think districts are doing better at retaining some of those TOCs and educators. But you're kind of seeing like just people are exhausted, right? And people might say, oh, well, teachers get 9 months and 9 months of work and 3 months off, whatever, right? But they're making 1,000 decisions a day in a minute, right? Like you're trying to teach and deal with a bunch of stuff being thrown at you, right? So it can be exhausting.
I would say too that you guys have never been in a worse situation as far as parents coming and biting your heads off and like the repercussions of everything. Like it used to be back in the day, back in like the 60s, like way back. And I'm not saying let's go back to the 60s, but like you would come home with a bad report card, little Johnny gets in trouble. Mm-hmm. Now little Johnny comes home with a bad report card and parents go to the teacher and say, you suck. You're not doing your job right, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So like, I mean, I don't blame the teachers for burning out. Mm-hmm. Like I would be annoyed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
it's like little Johnny didn't do anything wrong. Little Johnny doesn't participate in class. He picks his nose and he's super disruptive.
Yeah.
Well, deal with it.
Yeah. And I think,
you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Like there's a bit of undercurrent of enabling by parents, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think a lot of it is, and I'm not trying to pick on the parents. I love you parents, and I'm a parent.
I'm a parent too.
But you know what I mean? I think we need to do a better job as a society, as a parent, mm-hmm. to help our children regulate and learn emotional regulation mm-hmm. as children.
Totally.
But the problem is a lot of the parents don't have emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. And we're escaping into our phones instead of investing into our children. Mm-hmm. And I think it's evident now in the school system. Mm-hmm. The more that there's a disconnection between the family unit, the more that the child is going to be more difficult to educate. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like, And maybe that's screen time. Maybe there's a bunch of factors that are going into it. But this is, again, not a problem that's going to go away. We're not just going to get rid of screens or social media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And one of the focuses in Abbotsford District, which I really like, is social emotional learning. So
social emotional
yeah,
learning.
so we call it SEL. So
Okay.
SEL, what does that look like? Well, one example I used, 10 years ago, I would call it a soft start. So
Okay.
instead of 30 kids, you're walking in, and I say, okay, 8:05, boom, we're getting into the lesson. The approach to the soft start is, hey, okay, tell me about your day, Merrick, or what happened last night. What video game did you play? Who's your favorite football team? Let's talk about something, or we'll tell jokes for.
Raider Nation, baby.
Yeah, totally. And that kind of just it just relaxes the shoulders. Everybody settled in. You're not expecting academic work for that 90 minutes that you have them. And again, a bit of tact. I think it's
This is a human nature thing.
totally.
It's not even just
that's your connection piece.
Got to
right?
make your connection points.
Yeah. So that whole relationship building, the trust is huge, and with the families as well, parents. The report card piece, you're going to need a bit of transparency. That might look like more phone calls or emails than you would like. So like, how's my kid doing? So again, add a layer to the exhaustion, but I think it's required to.
It's tough too, because you got 30 kids, depending on elementary or high school.
100%. Yeah.
And then with high school, you've got 5 blocks of kids.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
And
kids.
sometimes teachers have more blocks, right? So they'll be working 5 or 6,
right?
And then they're doing extracurricular coaching and whatever, right? So
120 now it's 150 kids.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm noticing, and this is a bit of a tangent, but an observation, I'm noticing that high school sports is, I wouldn't say the quality. I mean, kids are athletic. I mean, kids do well, but high school sports, I want to say, is taking a bit of a dive in terms of the competitive nature. Like I remember, our days at Mowat, the gym was packed full with basketball fans, and you couldn't step on there's no room to operate as a player because there's people around you. But where I was going with this was we're seeing, teachers who coach or educators who coach, say 10, 20 years ago, aren't doing that as much anymore. I think they're having their own families or spending their time other ways, but there's still those people who love to stay, that do the long hours, 10-hour days. They're doing their teaching load and they're coaching after school. But I feel like less and less of that is happening, and it's not for any fault of their own. I think it's just kids aren't as engaged in high school sports as they used to be, or as competitive, right? Like
I think it's because there's alternatives, right?
Club volleyball, club basketball, club whatever, you name it.
Not only club sports, that's one thing, but like kids are now EGaming.
Yes.
Where e-gaming was never a thing before. You did sports because there was really nothing else. If you're from a small little community, it was basketball. Everyone played basketball together. And then it was like everyone's on the football team. Like you go down south, everyone's on the football team.
And everybody's there Friday night watching.
And nowadays you got guys that are into they start bands in their garage and they record their own stuff and they put it online. And then you have guys that are into gaming and then whatever. So there's a bajillion different things that kids are getting into, and they're not just into one thing anymore. There's just less of a pool. This is why they build super schools in the States. So they can get like 6,000 kids in one school and they can make the best football team. God bless Texas, baby. Because like
everything's bigger in Texas.
So they can get a bigger pool of kids to pull from, right? So it's like, I mean, I can see it. Like, I mean, you had the drama kids when we were in high school. You had your drama kids. You had your, kids hang out in Vinyl Tech and the whatever, right? Like you had your pockets. But like now it's even more. There's even more stuff to do. So
and I think even more so. I keep going back to the connection relation. Like those teachers and educators, all staff, I remember myself, like they all need to be available for the kids, right? So if there's something that they want to do, it's not usually a no. Like let's try something. If you like it, hang around,
figure it out.
Connected.
I mean, I feel bad for teachers. I love teachers for the record. Like it's not a job I would want to do. I struggle with my kids. And I love my kids. You know what I mean? So it's like to handle other people's kids, and I'm like, I don't love this kid. Like it's a tough thing. So it takes a real special person to be able to to do it. I don't think that our system is operating properly if we're getting a massive amount of burnout. You know what I mean? Like I would like to see something change for the benefit of the teacher. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's more taxes to make more money so we can pay teachers better or have more, teachers on, what's not teachers on call, but the TOCs, thank you.
Yeah. You got it.
You know what I mean? Like it's something where, I don't like to see burnout. I mean, there's really good teachers and they put in 10, 15, 20 years. And I was like, you don't want to see them leave. You know what I mean? These are the ones that are like, these are doing the work. It shouldn't be the standard in a profession that you have to just do stuff that you're not getting paid for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, obviously, that you're not going to be a millionaire being a teacher. Ironically, actually, I think teachers and real estate are the two highest retiring people. Yeah, and if it's teachers because they're really good with their money, typically.
Okay.
So they actually invest. They have stuff like that. So they actually like squirrel it away, and over time, and they retire.
Accumulate.
So, yeah. Whereas and real estate is people that go into real estate or whatever, they usually get into real estate development and stuff like that. So anyways, but yeah, their teachers do well over time.
Yeah.
But it's like you're not going in there. It's not a sexy, flashy. You're not a firefighter. You're not taking your shirt off.
Yeah.
And,
You said yesterday, the last podcast, you're not a Marine.
Yeah, you're not a Marine. It's not sexy. You're not a cop. Like those are sexy jobs.
Yeah.
Teachers like, I'm a teacher,
But there's some of the greatest people on earth,
totally.
in my opinion. Right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like, I hate to see the burnout. Yeah. So on one side, I see teachers like, burning out. I see schools too small, and I see parents not supporting properly, in my opinion. This is just my opinion.
Yep.
And I'm getting emails from my teachers, my kids' teachers, and I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like great communication, like wicked. Oh, your son, he fell down today and bumped his head, and he was a little sad. I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to ask him about it, and then he's going to say, yeah, Miss, shout out to Miss Addie and all the other teachers doing it right. But in Sandy Hill, but she's awesome. Yeah. She's putting the effort in, right? But it's like. You guys get, summers off or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Do you guys get paid during summer? Do you get salary or do you get do you guys get salary when you're in school?
You have a choice. So like teachers can take their salary over 10 months or they can do 12 months.
Right.
They have a choice. It's just, they just have to let them know, right? I think it's at the beginning of the year, like, hey.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I want it all up front or I want it over the course of the 12 months.
Yeah, probably do it over 12 months.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I've done both. And I'm like in the summertime, I need to find a landscaping job or something.
That's so funny.
Burn through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Come show properties for me.
Yeah. I'm into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do we do? Like, how do we help and support the teachers? Like, I think we all agree we want good teachers. I think that's a universal, I don't care what religious background you have. You want people who care educating your kids. And then how do we support administrative? Because I mean, like you guys got like, it sounds like a money issue. If you're getting teachers that are burning out, you don't have proper, EAs or whatever it's called. What's it called?
Educational assistants.
Yeah. And the schools are like pretty stacked. You know what I mean? It sounds like this is a money issue.
Yeah. That's a hard one because there's a bit of contractual stuff there. I don't know how you go around that without renegotiating. And again,
what do you mean contractual? Like teacher salaries and stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a part of a teacher strike in 2014, and you're kind of going back and forth with the government, right?
Sure.
And your province or the union has to agree to a binding contract, however that looks, like 3 years, 5 years, whatever. So there's a bit of that. I think all schools, all districts could use more money, absolutely, but the ministry will allocate that funding for the most part, right? So I mean, there's opportunities to fundraise and blah blah blah.
Yeah, but shouldn't kick that they shouldn't kick it back. Like you guys should number one have the facilities that you need. That should be number one. Like the fact that you said some people in Surrey can't send their kids to their catchment school. That's wild.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, if that's true, I was just an article.
Sure, and whether we're not saying it is true, but if that's the case, it's crazy. I mean, even with I mean, it's just I don't know.
It's definitely hard. Now, the flip side to that is if you look at we're, I would say, top tier education in the world. Okay. If you're comparing to
what metrics do you guys use to?
Oh, there's everything.
Like there's graduation levels on kids.
Yeah. Well, there's
competency.
There's assessments in grade 4, grade 7, grade 10. There's a new literacy and numeracy assessment. There's grad rates. There's
bunch of stuff.
Yeah, university. You can compare a whole bunch of different data points.
And you're comparing to like the first world countries of the world, Europe, America.
Europe, Finland,
Yep.
Sweden, like all the top notch. Like in terms of like numeracy, literacy, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Like we're up there. So
Yep.
we do have, I would consider, a world-class education. Facility-wise, like, are we comparing private and public sectors? Like, there's that piece too, right? But
Sure.
from a public perspective, I think we're doing very well.
Except for the portables.
Except for the portables. Well, what's the alternative, right? But
build a 3-story school.
yeah. Well, I think, and this is public knowledge, I think Irene Keller was like $28 million. And where do you get that $20 million, right?
Yeah.
That's coming from the government, taxpayer money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, change. Like, how do you do major change? It's slow. Right?
Yeah.
It's super slow.
I think the issue for the ministry is that politicians make 4-year decisions, and schools are 30-year decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got.
That's a good point.
Well, I mean, think about it. So if they decide to build a $28 million school, they're taking money from they only have so much money to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So they really have to think long term for schools, like forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, schools aren't going to go away. We need to educate our kids forever. So we should be making 100-year plans for education. And then we should be funding big ticket, based on production population and stuff like that, where the need's going to be. This school is going to be built in 2026. This school is going to be built in 2027. Then we're going to start these schools. The schools that are there, like land is an issue. I work in real estate. I know how expensive land is. You guys own land. The government can issue land, so maybe you're going to move the school from here to here, whatever. That's kind of stuff that needs to happen on a long-term macro level. That's the beginning, in my opinion. The ministry needs to think that way, right? Because if you fund a $28 million school, that comes out of the budget. That's like and whoever is in office at the time is paying that price, and in 4 years, the next government gets the reward of the new school opening, because it takes 4 to 6 years to go through the construction process.
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of the thing where it's like,
And
let's
how is
say
that money allocated? Right,
yeah, let's say
along
the
way?
NDP is in power right now.
Yeah.
Let's say they start 5 or 6 different schools, and then the BC Liberals get in, and then they go, hey, look at all these new schools we've got, and they go, yeah, look, we're doing a great job with education.
Yeah.
No, it was the NDP that started them. And reverse that. The BC Liberals start it, and the NDP get the reward.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what policy or what party you're voting for.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, I think, with a lot of our public sector stuff, is
Yeah.
we don't think long term enough.
A lot of catch up, right?
Yeah, we're playing catch up all the time.
Yeah,
So-
and I can see that. I mean, the Surrey example, to me, it's mind blowing how many people are going there right now and how little space there is,
Sure.
right? Like, it's just, and like, I think we referenced it earlier. How do you get around that? Well, you have the space, but you're going to have to start adjusting people's schedules
Yeah.
to come at different times.
I think that's the fix that we have to do if we don't have the physical capacity, which I think is an issue. But at the same time, what if it was a benefit? What if it was a benefit for the kid to start at 10:30, and he's gonna have maybe he works through his lunch, or he, instead of an hour or whatever, like it's shorter or whatever. Like we figure it out. Where the time in the classroom's the same.
Yeah, and I think, again, my radical idea. I think.
People are like,
4-day work week.
Yeah.
He said, what? Fridays off. Actually, hire this guy for trustee.
Dad Village ad.
No, I think, the 4 days it's intriguing to me. I think that, that we as educators should be working the 5 days, but kids there 4 days and then have the added day. But flexibility, I think there's some creativity that can happen there. I don't have the best idea, but it's just an idea. And there's lots of them out there. But I think we're trending away. I think there's a bit of an undercurrent of trending away from the current model, which is kind of exciting, because it's changed and inspires change.
Yeah, I always. If you look at, sorry, finish your point.
No, that was essentially it. But I think the capacity thing and the science behind kids learning, I think there's merit there. And what that looks like, it takes a collective effort, because some people don't like change. They have their schedule set, their routines and everything, but I always operate at what's best for kids. So,
that should be the focus from everyone, whether, like you said, top down and bottom up. It's got to be the focus. What is actually best for the kid, not what's best in your opinion, but like what's best for the kid as a whole. I always look at the Oxford University was started in like 1010. So this is how old Oxford University is, okay? So it's like...
I'm following, yeah.
The pyramids in Mexico were built in 1250.
Crazy.
So we have an older system of education at the university level, kids coming in, sitting down and listening to a lecture, than the pyramids in Mexico. That's wild.
Yeah.
And think about how much has changed since they built the pyramids.
Yeah.
Since 1010, how much of our world has changed in the last 100 years, let alone since back then. Predominantly, you look at the history of, we slowly, and then the last 100 years was like, boom, explosion of the computer age and all the changes that have happened. Yeah, information age is super, I remember teachers like, oh, you're not going to walk around with a calculator in your pocket. You better learn how to do the long version of this arithmetic. And here I am with a calculator in my pocket. And I don't even need to. I say, hey Siri, what's the blah blah blah?
Yeah.
And boom. Yeah. There's the answer. So it's like, that's the we got to adjust. We have to update the approach. I think. You know what I mean? Whether, like you said, whether it be a 4-day week or a flexible schedule or whatever it is, but we have to kind of look at it, I think, through new eyes. You know what I mean? Yep. I think too, with the millennials getting in, and not that the baby boomers did a bad job, and I'm not knocking on anyone, but like with us getting in to being a voting demographic that matter. We haven't mattered in a society in our life. It's been the baby boomer show. You and I, even through university, and like we were not voting as a strong unit. Yeah. Did you know that if you actually
we need to vote more for sure.
Yeah, we need to vote more for sure. We need to. You as a parent, me as a parent, I need to show up to the meetings and actually get involved and actually contribute and get my voice heard. And that's the only way you're going to make change. As a parent, you need to participate. When a school board is going through the trouble of making a meeting to ask the parents what they want and no one shows up, that's your fault. That's 100% your fault. You're at fault. Like your school board is trying to get you to come and get feedback and you're not showing up. Yeah. That's the parents' fault. Yeah. Get off the couch. Dad, watch the kids. Mom, come and watch my kids. I got to go to this school board meeting and get involved. Yeah. That's the way you're going to make change.
Yeah. There's a big thing in our district right now around student voice. So what is student voice is essentially sharing what they don't like about the school, things that they can try within the realms of the rules.
Sure.
And I think there's a bit of change. So we're seeing, kids share their opinions a bit more, and in our school looks a bit different, but we're adjusting how things look a little bit differently based on their feedback.
Right.
And same goes with parents. Like there are surveys that go home. Everyone hates a survey, but to your point, there's PAC, the Parent Advisory Council, right? Like you can get involved with them, and
shame on me. I'm not even on my PAC. Here I am preaching to people.
That's a direct link to your admin and the school. So right. Sandy Hill, you kind of reach out to your PAC or your admin and be like, hey, I want to be a part of this, or how do I get involved? How do I?
Sure.
So that's one small example of how we can initiate change. But I think if the school board is asking tough questions and they want to hear parents and
they're concerned and they want feedback and no one gives them feedback,
100%.
And they're just going to go with the 12 people in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And make the best decisions
and
they can.
Small sample size, right? So, and I think I don't know what our voting percentage is, like 30%, 30.
Brutal, man.
It needs to be a bit higher, I think, to capture what people think, especially in Abbotsford, right? Because we don't, not a lot of people vote in Abbotsford, but that's a whole effort. Yeah,
that's another issue, which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
You want change, people love complaining. Honestly, if you didn't know any better, you would think complaining was like oxygen to people.
It's easy.
They just need it. Oh my God, this stupid school board, blah, blah, blah. Have you been to any of the meetings? Have you contributed? No, not you. I'm saying to the person. Have you been to any of those meetings? No. Have you contributed in any way? Have you given feedback? Have you been a volunteer? Oh, you haven't. So it's really easy just to complain about the problems that you're seeing in society and then yet not do a single thing about it. Like, dude, voting is the lowest bar. The lowest bar of making a change, an actual change in your society.
Yeah. It takes 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. People take for granted democracy.
You take it for granted. You can vote.
Yeah, you can vote. Yeah. You can vote. Yeah. Like you get to go to, well, it doesn't make a difference either way. Yeah. That's not true. You know what I mean? Like that's not true. Like you want to go and live in a communist country that you don't get a vote?
Yeah.
Well,
there is some
wild.
There's some state, or not states, but there was some we'll call it districts or whatever in the states. It's like Biden or Trump. The difference there was 3 votes, right? Like it was just absolutely wild. So you're saying your vote didn't matter? It did. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Whether you wanted Biden or Trump, it was a 3-vote difference. Yeah. So whether you're on heads or tails on the coin, it doesn't matter. You just got to show up.
100%.
But I think what we need to do is get more involved as a whole in the educational system. I mean, like the parents need to be more. What's the word? More interacting with the administration, right? So it shouldn't be a disconnect between parents and administration. And if the parents aren't showing up, how can the administration get to them? They're sending them emails. They're not answering the emails. Like, what can they do? Go door to door?
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair.
Yeah, and I'd say like our information is like we have center voice, we have texting, we have whatever. We can blast info out all the time. I'm sure Sandy Hill or whoever.
I get emails from the board, like the District 34 or whatever it is. You know, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And I don't read them.
Delete. Yeah. A lot of people.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well,
I am every parent. You're talking to every parent right now. So.
Well, I feel like people at my work like, oh, they see an email from me, auto delete because they put that. Like, come on, you guys, come on. No,
that's
but
so funny.
It's
this is spam.
Yeah, it's spam. I'm not gonna listen to you. But yeah, no, I think the amount of information shared, and maybe it's a bit overwhelming. Like, how do I process this? Or it's just another school email or whatever. But I mean, all of it matters, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if we're looking at the future of our kids, I mean, similar ages, I'm not so worried. I think I maybe have to look at myself, kind of like what you said earlier, right? Like, how am I supporting them at home?
Yeah.
In order for them to succeed in society, and that includes school.
Yeah.
So, am I being the best parent I can? I think I have a lot of work to do.
Well, right? You know, Gabor Mate talks about like if your parents gave you, and for those that are listening, he holds his hands very far apart. If your parents gave you this much shit and you give your kids this much shit, you're a good parent. So I think as a society, as millennials as a whole, I think we're doing a better job assessing ourselves. I know I am. I talk to other parents that are reading parenting books and stuff, and they care. You know what I mean? And I think the psychology is better understood now. So I think we're getting better. But you know, as a parent, it's up to you not to pass on the generational trauma. Like that's you. You're now inflicting it. Stop it. You are the one that's now, you know, holding the fist, wielding the weapon of trauma. Stop it.
Yeah,
you're
responsible.
You're responsible now.
Like
this is, you know, in my other, I don't know if you listened to it in my other podcast, I talk about leaving a cult. And one of the decisions was I'm now establishing the rules of the cult into my kids, right? So I grew up in it, and you just do what you're told. You're a child, you're the victim. But then as the parent, you become the perpetrator. So as a parent, you may, like, there's a million people, you know, I didn't want to be a parent, and, you know, I had a kid, oops. It's like, you are that now. There's no going back. You can't return your kids. I've looked into it. There's no return policy. So you're stuck in this situation. So make the best of it. Make the best human beings you possibly can as a parent. And you need to read books about the psychology, read Gabor Mate's Scattered Minds, read about how you can teach your kids how to regulate their emotions. And this is something that we're doing now. I'm doing this with Milo. He's you know, he's the youngest, so he doesn't have a voice almost. So he's like, he acts out, and it's like, that's not acceptable. So we can feel those feelings, but we don't act out those feelings. Right? So it's like, if you can't emotionally regulate yourself, like as a parent, and you're going in and you're ripping the teacher's head off, you're showing your kid two things. Number one, that you don't need to be emotionally regulated, and two, that you're not responsible for your actions. And accountability is huge, dude. Like, these kids got to be accountable. Parents need to be accountable. So I think if we're societally, if we're moving in that direction, I think we're going to have a better support system for teachers and for the educational system on the parenting side. I can't speak of the administration. I can't speak of the teachers.
I mean, it's all blended, but I mean, so if I was to ask you a question,
shoot.
Because you know, small poll in the district, small poll, but the feedback's important. So, how old is Milo right now?
Milo he's in kindergarten.
Okay.
He turned 5 in December.
So he turned 5. So K to 12. He's going through the system. What's your expectation? What would your expectation be of the district, and what's your hope for him by the time he graduates? Because those are questions that I love to hear, and that kind of impacts how we operate.
Sure,
in a way.
Okay, so I mean, as far as education, I want him to be safe.
Okay.
I want him to go to school, and I want him to be safe. And I don't mean safe from like, safe from bullies, that's part of it, but I just mean safe in general, right? I don't want him to get molested. I don't want him to, you know, anything I don't want somebody coming with a gun into the school and all that kind of stuff. So I know we don't really have those issues in BC and Canada, knock on wood, but you know, that's something is safety for the kids. And that's number one. I want my kid to go to school and be safe. Number two, I want him to learn to think. I'm not concerned with what he learns as much. Like, I can look up the Napoleonic Wars and whatever. That history is now accessible, whatever. That's great. But I would like him to learn how to reason. So for me, my goal would be like, teach my kids how to be critical of authority and critical of their parents, critical of the system. I mean, and it's as a parent, it's like, oh, no, respect your parents. Don't question authority. But no, the best thing you can have of your kid is like, Dad, why are you doing it that way? Well, son, this is my reasoning for it. And he goes, oh, well, have you thought of this? And you know what? No, I haven't thought of that. That's actually a really good thought. We're gonna implement that. That act alone, like that willingness to kind of have that conversation with your kid, is so important for your kid's development. So for me, yeah, I need him to know how to read. I need him to know how to do the math. I need him to know how to do the fundamental things and stuff like that. But I also want him to learn how to reason. You know what I mean? So that for me is what I would want. And I'm not educated. I didn't get a post-secondary education. In hindsight, looking back, I probably would have benefited from it. So I want him to feel comfortable doing it. Just because Dad didn't get educated, I can still do it, and this is good. You know what I mean? So I don't want to negatively affect his decisions or affect them like, oh, you don't need to get an education, son. What a waste of time. Just pick up the hammer and come to work. Well, maybe he doesn't want to be in construction.
Totally.
You know, maybe he's a physician. Maybe my daughter's a physician. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I want a system that lets them develop into what's their expression, their self-expression.
Yeah, I love that.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I would look at it. And that would be my hope for the education system.
And I'd say our current system allows for that, like to express who they are and what they want to be, right? When they get a bit older in the secondary level, then that's where they kind of have to decide where's my path. Right? And it does put a bit of pressure on the kids, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm only 15, 16. What electives and where all my friends are going in this class, and I'm not smart enough to get into IB or whatever. So there's a bit of that added layer, that added pressure there. But I think that's a great answer. I mean, one of the best ways to connect with a kid is, if you're going to explain something, you better expect why back, because they want to know the why. Yeah,
because I said so isn't good enough.
100%, because they will rebel, or not rebel, but you know what I mean? Like,
I heard a parent say, oh, I said so, and I'm like,
that's not going to work. Not this day and age, right? No. So you need to have a good understanding of why you're doing things the way you are. Other than just because I said so, or because the curriculum says so, or because the school rules do apply, and therefore we keep the school safe because of the current policies that we have in place. And you know, I take great pride in that, because you know, I'm a part of the district health and safety team, and we want to keep our schools safe. So A, are they safe, and B, can you be who you want to be up until you graduate? Right? And with that, get a good education on your way out. So I mean, if the same question was posed to me, this is very similar.
And if I was a good host, I would have asked it.
Very similar. Well, very similar answers. But you're a product of the system, right? So yeah, I mean, it's you are a great host, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
And very intellectual.
Stop it.
So I'm blown away. Again, a tangent with some of the conversations you've had on here. It's great. You know, super proud of you. I mean, I've known you 20 years. I'm like, this is
wild, eh?
This is so cool.
That's wild, eh?
You're doing this, long time. Wild. We're getting old.
I know, man. That sucks.
Old, but
it sucks. Youth is wasted on the young, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah,
100%. But I think those are great answers.
Yeah, I mean, so to recap, I'd love to parents, if you're listening to Radio Land and you want to see changes in your school, you are the change. You need to do it. You need to be contributing. You need to be showing up. You need to be helping. Teachers, don't get burnt out. Honestly, I love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing, but don't get burnt out. You're climbing a mountain, okay? The mountain's not stopping. It's not going away. It's there, and you're just keep walking up that mountain. Take a break. Take a break when you need to. If that means not coaching, for a couple years because you need to kind of respect your time, then do that, and then come back at it when you're feeling good. You know what I mean? Like, let someone else. Well, there's no one else to do it. Then there's no program for it, because you gotta. It's better that you stay in the fight than it is that you walk away from the battle. So I mean, that would be my advice to teachers. And as far as administration goes, keep reaching out to people, man. Like keep trying to get the conversation going, and keep experimenting. Like, let's keep evolving the system of education to meet the needs of today. We are not in the Industrial Revolution anymore. We don't need factory workers. That's gone. It's never going to come back. With robotics and automation and AI, there might not be a factory in the future. You know what I mean?
Kind of scary to think about.
Yeah. Right? Well, I mean, there was a thought where it was self-driving cars. where the alpha generation, our children in the alpha generation, could grow up and never have a driver's license because self-driving cars can, within the next 10 to 15 years, get to the place where they don't need a driver's license. So they just get in the car and it takes them to their destination. Now you may have a driver's license for like the novelty of driving an old car, but you won't need one. And that was kind of like, I was like, it was at a summit, a future summit or whatever. And I was like, wow, that's wild to think about. But think about if you don't need to park your car, you can just let your car go and collect fares while you're working. So you're instead of you're at work for 8 hours, your car's driving around for 8 hours, electric or whatever, and it collects fares for you.
Yeah. Awesome.
And it makes you money.
Yeah.
Like, sweet. You don't need parking lots. There we go. Now we can build bigger schools because we don't need parking lots. You know what I mean? Like, it's a wild change of things that can happen. The grocery stores, all these things. You get dropped off, you go in, your car shows up, you load your groceries, and you drive away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the amount of parking lots that we have, the amount of space and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see where our world will go. And I think part of what we need to do is evolve the educational system as we evolve as a society.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you hit the nail on the head a few minutes ago, right? Like meeting the needs of the kids where they're at, right?
Yeah.
And I think
it's tough when it's one kid's here and this kid's here. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a delicate
delicate balance.
Delicate balance.
Yeah.
But I think we have to evolve. Like there's room to evolve with them. Society isn't changing, right?
Yeah.
It's going to go on its path, and I think we kind of have to follow suit within what we have, right?
Yeah.
And we're bound by certain things, but I think we can get creative in others. If I was to summarize this podcast,
sure.
right? Like there's room for growth and there's room for change, but it takes a collective effort. And I'm not saying the current system is bad. I think it's great.
Yeah,
but I think
and we're not shitting on. I don't want to come across as negative to the school system because it's not. You got a bunch of people that just care about kids that want to do the best by these kids. Like they're not. You know what I mean? Like it's not a. I don't think we have any. There may be one or two teachers that are mailing it in, but majority of teachers aren't. Man, they care, and they're doing a good job. You know what I mean? Like. I remember one teacher, I'm not going to name his name, but he was mailing it in. I sort of I loved him though. He's one of my favorite teachers, but I mean, he was just like, he just didn't care anymore. Yeah. But anyways, that's not the main
it's
person.
Still funny though. I mean, it's you see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah,
it's exhausting to get to work. But I mean, I think, if I was to summarize, we're doing a lot of good things. We're doing a lot of great things, and there's tons of opportunity for kids. Yeah. But I think there is, and maybe this is just the forward thinking in me, is there's going to be a bit of change that needs to happen to adapt to the climate that we're in. Yeah, and like you said, top down, bottom up. Bottom up is parents understanding the growing pains, like things are going to change, and we're evolving, and they've got to kind of understand that when you try something new, there's going to be things that you didn't expect to happen. Like there's going to be we weren't expecting this response, right? Then you got to adjust at an administrative level, right? So it's like there's got to be kind of a bit of a give and take, I think. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, I follow. Yeah, I follow. Yeah, and honestly, rip off what you see in other countries. Like if they're doing something in Sweden or Finland really well, and they're like, hey, let's implement that and see what happens, right? But man. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to continue the discussion just quickly, there's like high tech high in the States, which is like it's all top of the notch. It's a high school for high tech, and you're researching, developing, and doing super cool stuff. And they're high school kids, right? Yeah. A lot of inquiry, a lot of projects, a lot of travel and experimenting with the land that you're on. Yeah. And I think I'm a full on believer in that, right? Like our system needs to be beyond the four walls of the classroom. And how can we give that opportunity, right? Like, I wonder if there's a level too that we could get other businesses involved. Like. You look at Google, or you look at these big companies, Apple and stuff like that, these big corporations and stuff like that. They've got deep pockets. It's like, maybe get them involved in some sector. Like, like a kid in high school is like, he's going to go spend 6 weeks at Apple and like, whatever. Yeah. Learn from an engineer or something like that. Like, how cool of an experience would that be for a kid? I mean, that'd be a life-changing experience. Obviously properly vetted and safe and all that kind of stuff. But totally. You know what I mean? Like, just thinking, like you said, outside the four walls of the school, right? And then, if you've got a kid that's coming from, low income, and he's now going into this unbelievable world that he never would have, or she never would have gone into otherwise.
going, wow, this is possible for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is possible for you, little Johnny, little
Mhm.
Susie. You can,
Yeah.
you too can, go work at Apple or go start up your own business or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Like what a cool
Yeah.
paradigm shift it would be
Mhm.
for them to experience something like that.
And we do stuff, at a smaller level, community level
Sure.
like that. We do a little bit of collaborations and stuff, which is great. I think it keeps the community connected. And that's, from your last podcast, Ian Hamilton,
Yep.
Fraser Fisheries,
Yep.
super cool. I would love to get somebody like that involved.
I'm sure he'd love it. I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he'd love to come and help.
It's real. It's
Yeah.
it's tangible. It's practical, right? And it's on the land that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
I think, so you're right. Like you need to experience other things. And how do you do that? Well, you have to bring other people in. And I think schools are doing that. We're doing that. But
Yeah.
I mean, you think of big scale, then maybe we need to try other things like that, right?
Well, I mean, even like forestry or like whatever, like you can get other big BC government things that are like, have the kids spend a couple weeks in the forestry sector, like not
Mhm.
logging, but like, you know what I mean? Like learning about getting practical. My son the other day, he's like, I'm not learning the right things in school, Dad. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I need to learn how to go hunting and go like fishing. And I'm like, yeah, those are good things to learn, dude.
Yeah.
But like,
Not part of the curriculum.
Yeah, not part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
But it's like there's an elementary school in Abbotsford. They do like outdoor learning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the kids literally go outside and they're learning their classrooms outside,
Mhm.
which is, I'm like, well, we live in BC. There's a lot of rain. Well, they wear coats. They have jackets.
Yeah.
There's another thing where it was like Sydney and I were actually looking at it, was the virtual blended school and it was like 2 days or 3 days on and then 2 days at home or something like that. And I was like, I didn't even know there was an option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some options here that are available to parents that like,
Totally.
like, go look at it. Like
Yeah.
there's different things available depending on what you want.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like stuff's already coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got the largest cohort of people just throwing their kids in whatever school they happen to be in, but
Mhm.
there's other stuff available.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I didn't get into the whole like what options are there. It was just more of a general. What is?
Well, why don't we close on that?
Sure.
Well, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
And for the parents that are curious, that are listening, this is BC specific, so we're talking about BC, Abbotsford. But what are the options for parents?
Okay, well, I'm just going to start at secondary. So, I mean, if you're looking at online schooling, there's Abbotsford Virtual School, which is more or less online. Like you're
Taking the classes from their laptop at home.
Yeah. So
Is that Zoom?
No, I think it's through a program called, it used to be Moodle. It was Google Classroom. Now I think it's Brightspace, which is funded by the ministry. So ministry selected Brightspace as their learning management system.
Okay.
So it kind of operates like Google Classroom, super user friendly. It's great, but you're doing your coursework on the computer. And you're liaising with your teacher online. If you have questions, you kind of just shoot them an email or message. You're like, hey, I'm stuck on this, or I need help with this, or what do you think about this? And they'll respond back to you within a couple of days, if not that day.
That's pretty sick.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And they do offer a lot of electives. So you can take your electives there online. So maybe things that you're not taking at your home school. So for example, Moet, they're not offering me, I don't know, textiles 12, right? But maybe somehow, or foods 12, that's a bad example. Let's go foods 12. I can't get into my foods 12 class at school, so I'm going to take it at AVS. Well, how do you do foods 12 at AVS? Well, I'm going to do all my programming at home. I'm going to send pictures. I'm going to show my recipes. And
Interesting.
So you're doing it from home essentially, but it's virtual.
Sure.
So, and that might be another bad example, but that's an option.
Sure.
Right? Then you have your secondary schools, typically based on catchment.
Yep.
There are some, and I don't want to speak for the district, but there are some things where if I want to get into the golf academy at Bateman, there's only one golf academy. So if I want to go to that program, I have to apply to get into Bateman, right?
Right.
So
Or move.
Call
your local realtor.
Yeah, that's right. Merrick Mediate. Or there's the hockey academies.
Right.
And so
At Yale.
Yeah, Yale. And then there's other programs like IB at Abbey. Like, so there's,
Right.
if you're looking for specific things, some schools have a niche kind of, but otherwise it's catchment based, right? Otherwise, if you move from one Hanson to Moet, you need a new address, right?
Yep.
And going to the middles, kind of an interesting note. Our cohort was the last cohort. So we were the youngest for 2 years. So we were 8 to 12 at Moet. the middle schools came in, and then we're 9 to 12. We're the youngest again, so we're like, oh, this kind of sucks, but it's kind of cool, right?
It was
like,
cool, yeah.
So the year 2000, I think that happened.
I was never in a middle school.
You were never in middle school?
No.
Yeah, neither was I.
Yeah. We were the last.
We were the last.
Yeah.
So yeah, then you have all your middle schools kind of around the same catchment areas, and then your elementary schools. But there are there's other online opportunities, not within the Abbotsford School District, but there's distance learning. There's I think Heritage Christian Online. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. UFE offers
Heritage Christian Online is.
I think that's an online program,
interesting.
An opportunity to do courses that they the curriculum from ministry,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken. There's some if you're kind of aging out, you can also do some courses through UFE, I believe, some high school level courses.
Right.
And then there's like your BCITs. This is more like when you graduate, but I mean, there's tons of opportunity out there. The outdoor ed stuff, I think, is kind of new-ish.
It is, yeah.
In elementary.
Can't remember what it's called, but it was like, yeah, they literally go out in the forest and they'll like have a lesson out there.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
It's awesome. Yeah,
that's
great.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of the problems with boys in school, ADD boys and stuff like that is they're just sitting for so long. Like kids are meant to move. Like it's super tough to pin them down and make them learn. You know what I mean? Like they don't have the attention span for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like get them out there and they're running around. They're sitting on a log.
Yeah,
it's pretty dope.
Well, that's the science, right? Like if you're expecting a kid to sit in your class for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
You might see some behaviors, right? Like it's very hard. Like it's hard to sit for 90 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You've
just done it.
We've just done it. But I need a coffee, right? Yeah. But no, it's. I mean, we're accustomed to it, but kids nowadays, like they need movement, they need change.
Yeah.
Especially when they're seeing new things on their phone, like every 10 seconds.
I know you've got a flashing screen with bright lights and interacting games and noises and tings and blings, and then teachers standing up there.
That's what you're battling, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to come back and talk some more, but I mean, there's tons of opportunity to get into specifics. I'd have to dive a bit deeper, but I mean, there's
part two.
We're in a great system. And I hope it didn't come off as negative.
I don't think it did.
Yeah. I think it was just more like
it's kind of eye opening. I wanted to basically pull back the curtain a bit.
Totally.
Let people see it. And, it is a big ship.
Yeah.
You do have a lot, like everyone looks at their kids like this is the normal kid. This is the normal belief system, and this is normal. And that's like, dude, you've got 500 kids in a school. Like none of them have the same background. Like
everyone's got a different story.
Everyone's got a different story.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to make a system that's like acceptable to all of the backgrounds that these kids are coming with. Like that's
a hard job.
It's a hard job.
And then especially in just from a societal issue, right? Everybody's stretched, and I think the pandemic hit hard in a lot of sectors, including the education sector, right? And
yeah, we didn't even get into that.
Positive mind shift though. I'm always forward thinking, positive thinking. I think there's tons of awesome opportunities in the future, evolving a little bit, right? Like how do we create change and allow kids to be free?
I think there's enough people, not just maybe teachers, but like I think there's enough people wanting evolution, not just in the educational system, but like healthcare, education, like all the different things that they are the way they are forever. It's like these things can progress and they can change and they can evolve, and that's a good thing. Yeah, you know what I mean. As long as you have the intention right, like what your intention's going to be, then you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head.
No, thanks for coming, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it, man.
That was awesome.